Hi everybody. I am providing a brief video lecture slash screencast lecture. So again, I'm trying some new technology so you could look at multiple things. So I'm always looking to try new things. But anyways, I wanted to provide a little bit of instruction on the Module 4 assignment peer review, the summary and strong response draft, because of all the assignments this week, and there's not many, because this particular assignment is a little confusing. And just to remind everybody, these courses are developed by certain people, so I don't develop these assignments, so I help to facilitate their instruction. And so a lot of these assignments I've taught similar assignments throughout the years that I've taught, but I didn't create this assignment. So the first time I read through the instructions for the peer review summary and strong response draft, I was like a little confused. And then I kind of had to go through it, and then I understood. So I wanted to give some instruction on that will hopefully provide any clarity to anybody who's struggling with the assignments for that. Before I go into that, I do want to briefly say that I am currently in Florida for the Embry-Riddle Worldwide Conference. It's a week-long conference, and my time is very limited in terms of what I'm able to do on Canvas, which is very frustrating for me because there's a lot that I have to be doing. And the conference is 8 to 5 every day, and then we also have social events and receptions in the evening. So my time is limited, so I'm now behind on my grading for Module 2, and I'm also need to start working through grading of Module 3. So I sincerely apologize for the delay in that, and I am going to hopefully wrap up Module 2 grading soon, because as I said in an announcement that I provided, I'm also traveling next weekend. So when I'm traveling across country, it's pretty much an all-day event, and I don't always have the means and the time to sit down and focus to grade. So I apologize for that, but please feel free to contact me as always if you have any questions or anything. This is the only week out of the term that I'll be kind of relatively indisposed because of this conference. So anyways, so for this week, as always, you should be starting with the readings for this class. This week we have chapters 5, 23, and 24, and you can see that there's research strategies, because this has to do with the activity you're doing with the Hunt Library on identifying what a credible source is and how to evaluate sources effectively. And then you have this chapter on peer and instructor review, and that's specific to the assignment you have on the peer review assignment, the one that's kind of the big assignment for this week. So I'll probably, for these chapters, because every week I like to provide you with what I think the valuable takeaways are from the chapters, so I'll probably end up doing that in a text announcement rather than a video lecture or a screencast lecture, just because of my availability. I won't have the time to sit down and record, and then I upload to YouTube, and then I put it on in an announcement, so I won't have time for that process. So I'm doing it for the assignment rather than for the takeaways from the chapters, but I will provide an announcement this week that kind of says, okay, in chapter 5, this is what I think are the most valuable takeaways, and do the same for chapters 23 and 24. The other assignment before I get to the larger one, the Hunt Library, evaluating sources. So you've done the library basic training, and now what you're doing is you're getting into, this is what we call information literacy. It's how you can evaluate a source. So is the source credible? Is it a good source? When you were picking out scholarly sources for one of the assignments last week, the blog assignment, you had to evaluate the source to make sure that it was a scholarly source, which is why I encouraged everyone to send their source to me so that I could make sure that you didn't submit an assignment where you weren't using a scholarly source. So when you open this up, it'll have you click on, where you go to the training, and you'll eventually get to something like this, which is the tutorial, which is going to take you through kind of similar to the library basic training, which is how to evaluate sources. And it's a really important topic. It's valuable for any time you're doing research in any subject. So that's the Hunt Library assignment. A lot of people have started with that, and I actually recommend that. I would do the readings first, then do the Hunt Library activity, and then spend the rest of your time focusing on the peer review, summary, and strong response draft assignment. So if I'm going to open this up, and I've read through it numerous times, and I also tried to boil it down a little bit, and I'll go through these kind of pieces that I took out, because there's essentially what you're doing, and actually at a previous institution I taught, what you're doing is a slightly more simplified version of what students in my writing class used to do as a final exam. And that is, I pick out an article rather than the students, and I would give them all the same article for the exam, and they would have to write a summary and analysis. And that's essentially what you're doing, is you're writing a summary and analysis. They call it a summary and response, but the response is really a form of analysis. So all those different words might be a little confusing, but in effect, that's what you're doing. And I've provided a sample of what a summary and analysis looks like. One of the major things that student writers struggle with in all disciplines is how to differentiate between what summary is and what analysis is. So this is a really critical assignment, because it's something that students struggle with, and they really, really need to understand, when I'm doing summary, what am I doing, right? What's the rhetorical intention of a summary, and what's the rhetorical intention of analysis? So students tend to conflate the two, and they mix them together rather than providing a separate summary part, which is a very objective, this is what the text says, and this is how they're saying it, and this is why they're saying it, versus the analysis, which is a more subjective kind of interpretation or analysis, right? And here they talk about how it's like, you might agree with what they're saying, but you want to resist it by questioning it, arguing with it, refuting it. That's all analysis. So you're having a reaction to something. So that's where you kind of interject. I often use the metaphor of football for summary and analysis. So summary of a football game would be, okay, in this game, this is what happened, right? The coach started off with these players, and this team did this, and then this team did this, and then they scored a touchdown, and then they did this, and then they scored a touchdown, and then this person got an injury, and then, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, until the game is done and somebody wins. That would be a summary, right? I'm just telling somebody what happened in the game. An analysis or a response to a football game would be, well, the referee made this call, but I don't agree with it because of a particular reason. Or the coach had these people on the field when really I think he should have had this person on the field. Or, especially if coaches are drafting, or there's, switching of players on teams, right? We really think this team should have this person or these people because of these reasons, or this person is really good for this, right? Here I'm getting more into argumentative things. I'm not summarizing the game anymore. I'm now getting into, here's my response to this thing that this event that happened, whether it's a text or a game or anything else. So that's kind of the way I usually try to simplify summary and analysis in terms of their rhetorical intentions. Like the intention of the summary is to summarize the thing, whereas the rhetorical intention of the response/analysis is, now here's my response to that. I agree with these things. However, what about this? This could have led to this, or this may have done this, and here's why I'm arguing that. This is why that argument is important. So the sample that I provided you is under that handouts and resources section. It's down here at the bottom since it's the most recent one. And if you open that, you will see, and I'm just going to download it. Oops, downloaded it twice. But it's longer than what you're being asked to do because this was a sample that I wrote for my students who were doing this summary and analysis as their final exam. So, but it's from an editorial, and their assignment or their exam was the first paragraph needs to be summary, and then you have to have 2 paragraphs of analysis. So, but the main thing I hope that this will be helpful for is if you read through the first paragraph, you'll be able to see those attributive tags, which I'll point out in just a minute. But you'll be able to see what I'm doing in the summary rhetorically versus what I'm doing in the analytical or response paragraphs. The rhetorical intentions and the rhetorical situations of the summary versus the analysis are very different. So hopefully that's very obvious when you read through this, and I would encourage everybody to look through this. Like I said, it's longer. You're doing shorter, much shorter than this. I think this one was 615 words. You're writing about at the most 500 words, so it's not that much longer. Their exams they had to be at least 500 words, so it's about the same length. I just happen to write a little bit longer. And so I'm going to come back to this in a minute. So kind of just to take you through this summary analysis of the editorial piece and the peer reviews, right? Because so the peer review assignment, what you're doing, the first thing that you're doing is, I can make this a little bit bigger. That's fine. It doesn't need to be. Can I move this? I can. So the first thing you're doing is just like you did for last module, you're going to be locating another source. But this time, instead of a scholarly source, you're locating a substantive, right? So I said you're locating an editorial or what's called an opinion piece online. And I make a note, right, that this is what we call a substantive source, which I talked about last week. It's not a scholarly source. Again, if you want to send me a link to your source, if you want me to look at it and just kind of give you the okay or no, I don't think this source will work, try a different site or something like that, feel free to run your source by me. I'm happy to let you know if it's a good source or not. So you're going to find the source, that's the first step, and then you're going to conduct and craft summary and analysis. And so first you're working on a draft. So you're going to be doing a draft of this assignment, then you're going to be getting feedback from me and 2 classmates, and then from there you're going to revise and craft a final version, and then you're also going to submit that. So for the first part, for the draft, right, you're doing your summary, which is 150 to 175 words, and your summary should include thesis and major supporting points. And then I would have a second paragraph. I would do 2 paragraphs, do a summary paragraph and do an analysis paragraph instead of having one giant paragraph, because if you're able to split up the summary and analysis, it's going to be easier for you as the reader or the writer, and also easier for the reader to write. The rhetorical intention of this paragraph is to have summary, and the rhetorical intention of this paragraph is to have analysis. So then you don't mix up and conflate the summary with the analysis. But your analysis is 250 to 300 words. And your analysis should always be longer. Summary is what we call a lower level cognitive domain, so our cognitive practice